You know what blows my mind? Studies show we spend nearly 70% of our weekend time doing the exact same activities across cultures. Yet the way we talk about these shared experiences varies dramatically in every language.
That's such a fascinating statistic. What patterns have you noticed in how these universal activities get expressed differently?
Well, I've been analyzing this fascinating linguistic phenomenon where even basic weekend descriptions require mastering at least 50 distinct vocabulary words and 3 different grammatical structures just to share what we did on Saturday.
Hmm. That really puts into perspective how complex these seemingly simple conversations actually are.
And here's what's really interesting. Research shows that weekend-related vocabulary is among the top 100 most frequently used word clusters in language learning, right up there with numbers and greetings.
That makes me wonder about the evolutionary aspect. How did we develop such similar weekend patterns across different societies?
Well, historians actually trace our modern weekend structure back to the 1908 mill industry, when they first standardized the 2-day break. But what's fascinating is how quickly these patterns became universal. Within just 50 years, the Saturday-Sunday weekend was adopted by over 70% of industrialized nations.
You know, that really explains why these weekend narratives follow such similar patterns globally.
Exactly. And get this. Linguistic studies show that across 27 different languages, people tend to structure their weekend stories in almost identical ways. Wake up time, meals, activities, and sleep, with about 85% consistency in that sequence.
That's remarkable. How does this universal pattern play out in language learning specifically?
Well, research indicates that students who master weekend-related vocabulary first show a 40% faster overall language acquisition rate, likely because these patterns are so deeply ingrained in our social consciousness.
That's such a powerful insight about the connection between cultural universals and language learning.
And here's something else that caught my attention. Neurolinguistic studies suggest that when people describe their weekends, they activate the same brain regions regardless of their native language, showing this deep neurological connection to these shared experiences.
Well, that certainly explains why these conversations feel so natural even across language barriers.
You know what's really fascinating? Studies show that about 60% of weekend-related vocabulary overlaps across different languages, especially words related to food and social activities. It's like this universal weekend lexicon.
That's incredible. How does this shared vocabulary develop across such different linguistic systems?
Well, anthropologists suggest it's tied to human migration patterns. As people moved across continents, they carried these basic weekend concepts with them, creating this fascinating linguistic convergence where words for rest, friends, and food show remarkable similarities even in unrelated languages.
That really highlights how deeply these patterns are woven into human experience.
And here's another interesting finding. Research shows that people use approximately 30% more positive emotional words when describing their weekends compared to weekdays, regardless of their native language or cultural background.
That's such a telling indicator of how we universally view weekends as positive time.
Exactly. And what's particularly fascinating is how this positive association transcends economic status. Studies show that whether people have high-paying jobs or more modest incomes, they use similarly positive language to describe their weekend activities.
That really speaks to the fundamental human need for this rhythm of work and rest.
And get this. Linguistic analysis shows that people use about 40% more future tense when talking about weekends compared to other topics, suggesting these conversations play a crucial role in planning and anticipation across cultures.
That's fascinating how these simple conversations actually serve such an important social planning function.
Well, as we wrap up, here's something to think about. Researchers predict that with remote work changing our schedules, weekend vocabulary might evolve by up to 25% in the next decade. But those core patterns of rest, social connection, and personal time will likely remain constant.
That's such an interesting way to think about how these fundamental patterns might adapt to our changing world while maintaining their essential nature.
And that really brings us full circle. Whether we're learning a new language or connecting across cultures, these weekend conversations remain this beautiful constant in human communication, evolving yet somehow staying fundamentally the same.